My name's Margaret. I'm 68 years old and I can still remember the exact moment my legs gave up on me. It was a quiet Thursday morning, the kind where the light sneaks through the curtains just enough to remind you there's still life outside. I stood up from my favorite chair, the one by the window where I read every morning, and for a second, everything went black. My knees buckled, the room spun, and before I knew it, my hands were gripping the armrest for dear life. I didn't fall, not completely, but I almost did, and that almost haunted me. I sat back down, heart pounding, trying to laugh it off. Guess I stood up too fast, I told myself. But deep down, I knew. It wasn't just that. My legs had been getting weaker for months, maybe even years. I used to walk every morning with my neighbor, Claire. 2 laps around the park before breakfast, rain or shine. But lately, I'd make excuses. It's too cold today. My knee feels funny. Or my favorite lie. I'll go later. Later never came. Every time I stood up, it felt like my body was arguing with me. Like my legs were saying, "You've had your time. Sit down, Margaret." And I hated it. I'd always been the one who helped everyone else. I raised 3 kids on my own, worked double shifts at the diner for years, and still had energy left to dance in the kitchen. My legs were my pride. Strong, steady, dependable. But that day when I almost hit the floor, something inside me cracked. I remember sitting there staring at my trembling hands and whispering, "Is this how it starts?" That slow, quiet decline everyone warns you about. I looked around my living room, the framed photos, the books, the half-finished knitting project, and it all felt distant, like it belonged to someone who used to be full of life. And then came the fear. What if it happened while I was alone? What if I actually fell next time? You know that kind of fear, don't you? The one that makes you question every little movement, the way you get up from the couch, the step off the curb, even bending to pick something up. It's not just fear of falling, it's fear of losing control. That night, I sat in bed, my knees aching like old wood, and thought about how my mother used to say, "Growing old isn't for the weak." Back then I thought she meant courage. Now I understood she meant the body itself, the muscles that fade, the bones that whisper when you move, the strength that slowly slips away when you're not looking. I turned off the lamp, closed my eyes, and promised myself I'd figure it out. Somehow. But the truth was, I didn't know where to start. And maybe that's where you are right now too. Feeling your legs give way, wondering if it's just old age or something you could still change. Because that night, for the first time, I wasn't sure. And that uncertainty, it hurt more than the pain itself. After that morning, I started noticing everything. The way my knees trembled when I climbed the stairs, the hesitation before stepping into the shower, the tiny gasp that left my lips when I had to bend down to tie my shoes. It wasn't just weakness, it was fear disguised as caution. Every move became a calculation. Hold the railing. Go slow. Don't trust your balance. And every day I lost a little more confidence. It's funny. Nobody talks about how weakness changes who you are. It's not just your body that slows down. It's your spirit too. A few weeks after that, almost fall, Claire knocked on my door again. "You ready for our walk, Mags?" She smiled, her gray hair tucked under that same blue cap she always wore. I opened my mouth to say yes, but the lie caught in my throat. "I think I'll pass today. My legs feel a little off," I muttered. She hesitated. "You sure? It's beautiful out." I nodded, forcing a smile. "Next week." But we both knew there wouldn't be a next week. As she waved goodbye and disappeared down the sidewalk, I watched her steady pace, her arms swinging freely, and something inside me sank. That used to be me. By the end of the day, my house felt smaller. My world was shrinking, one missed walk at a time. I began finding excuses not to go out. The grocery store felt too far, the stairs too steep. Even walking to the mailbox felt like a chore. And slowly my days blurred together. One long stretch of sitting, reading, and pretending I was resting. But rest wasn't what I needed. I was rusting. My daughter, Emily, noticed it first. She stopped by one afternoon full of that fast-paced energy only younger people have. "Mom, what's going on? You used to walk circles around me." I laughed it off. "Oh, honey, I'm fine, just getting old." But she didn't smile. "Mom, getting old doesn't mean giving up." Her words stung more than I expected, because she was right. I had given up, quietly, without even realizing it. Later that night, I tried to get up from my chair. My legs felt heavy, like I was dragging 2 sandbags. My thighs burned, my breath caught. I sat back down, heart pounding with frustration. "Come on, Margaret," I whispered to myself. "You used to carry groceries up 2 flights of stairs without thinking twice." But that woman felt like a memory. The mirror didn't help either. My posture had changed, shoulders hunched, knees slightly bent. My reflection looked older, weaker, smaller somehow. And for the first time, I didn't recognize the woman staring back. I remember touching my thigh, pressing into the soft skin that had lost its firmness and thinking, when did this happen? When did I stop being me? I know some people will say, that's just age. But if you've been through it, you know it's not that simple. It's the loss of independence that hurts most. The quiet realization that your body might not catch you next time. The next morning, I tried doing something simple, standing on one foot while brushing my teeth like I used to. I couldn't do it. Not for even 5 seconds. That tiny failure felt enormous. Because it wasn't just balance. It was identity. I used to feel grounded in my own skin. Now I felt like a guest inside a body that no longer listened. And yet deep down there was still a spark, a whisper that said, maybe you can fix this. So I searched online, how to regain leg strength after 60. The results were overwhelming. Supplements, machines, pills, programs. Too much noise, too many promises. I clicked one video after another, each one claiming to have the secret, but none of them felt right. Too commercial, too perfect, too far from real life. I wanted someone to look me in the eye and say, I get it, I've been there and you can get better. But no one did. So I closed the laptop, made myself a cup of tea, and sat by the window again. The same chair, the same light. Outside, Claire was walking by. Same steady rhythm, same blue cap. And I thought to myself, she didn't stop moving. Why did I? The truth hit me hard. It wasn't my legs that gave up first. It was my mind. I let the fear grow roots, one, maybe tomorrow at a time. That night, lying in bed, I made a promise to myself. Tomorrow, I'd try again. Just one step, one movement, one small act of reclaiming my strength. But I didn't know that the very next day, I'd meet someone who would change everything. Someone who would remind me that strength isn't something you lose forever. Sometimes it's just waiting to be woken up again. It happened on a Sunday morning. You know those mornings that start out perfect? Soft sunlight, the smell of coffee, the quiet hum of a new day. That's how it began. I was getting ready for church, humming an old hymn I hadn't sung in years. I slipped my arms into my blouse, reached down for my shoes, and froze. I couldn't lift my foot. It sounds small, doesn't it? Just a shoe, just one ordinary thing. But I couldn't do it. My body refused. I tried again, leaning forward, my leg trembling. The pain shot up my thigh like a spark, sharp and mean. I lost my balance. The shoe fell, and I followed. Right onto the floor. The sound echoed in the empty room. A dull, heavy thud. I wasn't hurt badly, just startled. But what came next? That broke me. I tried to get up, once, twice, and failed. My hands shook. My breath came out shallow. I felt like a child trapped inside an old woman's body. And right there, Sitting on the cold floor, surrounded by silence, I started to cry. Not loud sobs, just quiet tears, the kind that burn your throat and taste like shame. I looked at that single shoe lying beside me and thought, is this it? Is this the moment my independence ends? All the memories flooded in. Dancing barefoot in the kitchen with my kids, carrying groceries, hiking with my husband before he passed. Every image was like a photograph fading in reverse, slipping further away from who I was. I sat there for a long time, afraid to move, afraid to call for help. I didn't want my daughter to see me like that. I didn't want anyone to. There's a kind of loneliness that only shows up when you realize your body can betray you. No one can really understand it unless they've felt it. I remember whispering into the empty room, "I'm still here, I'm still me." But it didn't sound convincing. When I finally managed to pull myself up using the chair, my arms ached like I'd lifted a mountain. My knees burned. My pride burned worse. I sat down again, shaking, staring at my legs. They looked fine, the same legs that once carried me through life, but they felt foreign now. Heavy, fragile, like they belonged to someone else. That day I didn't go to church, I didn't cook, I didn't even turn on the TV. I just sat there staring at the floor where I'd fallen, thinking, so this is how it happens. One little moment, and you start disappearing piece by piece. That night when Emily called, I lied. She asked how I was and I said, "Fine, honey, just tired." But inside I wasn't fine. I was scared. Scared that if I fell again, no one would be there to help me up. Scared that this was just the beginning of something worse. Before bed, I looked at my reflection again, pale face, tired eyes, and said quietly, "You've survived worse, Margaret." And I had. But survival wasn't the same as living. For the first time, I thought maybe this was the start of the end. The slow, invisible ending no one talks about. The one that doesn't come with pain, but with surrender. And yet, something deep inside me refused to surrender completely. A faint, stubborn voice whispered, "There has to be another way." I didn't know it yet, but that whisper, that tiny, defiant spark, was about to lead me to someone who would change everything. Someone who would remind me that my story wasn't finished yet. It took me a week to make the appointment. I kept telling myself it wasn't necessary, that I just needed more rest, more vitamins, more something. But the truth was, I was scared to hear what the doctor might say, scared to be told that my best days were behind me. Still, that following Tuesday, I walked, slowly, into Dr. Lewis's office. He wasn't my usual doctor. Mine had retired last year. This one was new, maybe mid-50s, calm eyes, a voice that sounded like he actually listened for a living. When he entered the room, he didn't rush. He just smiled gently. "Good morning, Margaret. What brings you in today?" I hesitated. The words felt heavy. "I almost fell last week," I said. "Actually, I did fall. I just didn't want to admit it." He nodded, not writing anything down yet. "And since then? My legs feel weak. I used to be active, but now even standing for too long makes them shake. I guess it's just age catching up." He smiled softly. "Maybe. But sometimes what we call age is really just neglect. Muscles that forgot how to wake up." I looked up, confused. "Neglect?" He leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees. Most people over 60 lose strength not because of disease, but because the small stabilizing muscles, the ones that keep you balanced and steady, go dormant. They stop firing because we stop using them. I blinked. "You mean this isn't permanent?" He shook his head. "No, Margaret. The body remembers. It just needs the right nudge." Something about the way he said it, not as a slogan, but as a truth, stirred something in me. "So what do I do?" I asked. "Join a gym? Buy one of those fancy balance boards?" He chuckled. No, you don't need equipment, and you definitely don't need a gym. Just 3 simple moves. That's all. 3 moves? He nodded. 3. Done right, done daily. That's the difference between weakness and strength. I raised an eyebrow. Sounds too easy. He smiled. It's simple, not easy. Then he stood up, motioned for me to follow, and said, "Let me show you something." He guided me to a clear space in the exam room. "First move," he said, "the chair stand. Sit, then stand, without using your hands. Do that 10 times a day." I frowned. "That's it?" He laughed softly. "That's where we start." He continued, showing me the heel-to-toe walk and a gentle leg raise. Nothing fancy. No machines, no stretching bands, just mindful movement. As I followed his lead, my thighs trembled slightly. I felt ridiculous at first, an old woman trying to imitate a fitness video. But then something surprising happened. My legs woke up. Not literally, of course, but there was a heat, a pulse, a faint reminder of strength. It was like my body was whispering, "You still remember this." When we finished, I was out of breath but smiling. Dr. Lewis looked at me, pleased. "That's it. 10 minutes a day, that's all I'm asking." I sat back down, heart still beating fast. "Does this really work?" I asked. He nodded. "It does. I've seen patients in their 70s and 80s regain balance, reduce pain, even walk without their cane again. The secret isn't intensity, it's consistency." Then he added, almost as if he were letting me in on something personal, "My mother's 75. She started these same moves last year. She walks to the farmer's market every Saturday now. No pain, no fear." That image, a woman in her 70s walking freely, stuck with me. For the first time in months, I felt hope that didn't sound like a commercial. As I left his office, Dr. Lewis said one last thing. "Margaret, you're stronger than you think. Don't let fear convince you otherwise." I walked out into the parking lot, the autumn sun warm on my face. And for a split second, I stood a little taller. It wasn't much, but it was something. That night, I set up a chair in my living room, the same one I'd nearly fallen beside weeks earlier. I took a deep breath, whispered, "Let's see what happens," and began my first set of chair stands. 1, 2. By 5, my legs were shaking. By 10, I was crying. Not from pain, but from something else entirely. It was relief. For the first time in a long while, I felt like I was doing something about it. And deep inside, I could almost hear Dr. Lewis's voice again. "The body remembers, Margaret. You just have to wake it up." The next morning, I woke up earlier than usual. The light was soft, pale gold spilling through the curtains. For the first time in months, I didn't lie there dreading the day. I got up slowly, half expecting the familiar stiffness, the dull ache in my thighs. And yes, it was still there. But something else had joined it. Determination. I pushed the armchair back, cleared a small space in the living room, and grabbed the same wooden chair I'd used the night before. It wasn't much, just me, a chair, and a quiet house. But it felt like the beginning of something. I sat down, took a deep breath, and whispered, "Okay, Margaret, let's wake up." First move. Chair stands. Sit, stand, sit, stand. At first it felt clumsy. My knees creaked, my thighs trembled, my breath quickened. But around the 5th repetition, something shifted. A warmth spread through my legs. Not pain, not strain, just a faint, steady pulse, like my muscles were remembering how to be alive. Second move, heel-to-toe walk. I stretched a piece of masking tape across the floor, my balance line. One foot in front of the other, heel touching toe, slowly, carefully. My arms wobbled, my body tilted, but I didn't fall. I laughed, actually laughed, because for the first time in a while I was testing my limits instead of avoiding them. Third move, Leg raises, 10 on each side. The first few felt impossible. My legs were heavy like lifting sandbags. But by the 8th, something inside me whispered, "See, you can still do hard things." When I finished, I collapsed into the chair, heart racing, a fine sheen of sweat on my forehead. And then I smiled. It wasn't a big smile, just the quiet kind that comes from doing something you didn't think you could. I hadn't conquered aging. I hadn't found a miracle, but I had moved. And that was enough for that day. By the end of the first week, I could stand up a little easier. My thighs didn't shake as much when I climbed the stairs. Even brushing my teeth felt steadier. It wasn't dramatic. It was subtle, like the difference between dusk and dawn. Slow, but certain. One afternoon while folding laundry, Emily called. "How are your legs, Mom?" she asked, trying to sound casual. I smiled, even though she couldn't see it. "You know what? Better. Not perfect, but better." There was a pause. Then she said softly, "I'm proud of you." Those words landed deep, because I realized it wasn't just about strength. It was about dignity. I was reclaiming something I thought I'd lost, the simple joy of doing things on my own. By the second week, I had my little routine. 10 chair stands after breakfast, heel-to-toe walk while waiting for my tea to steep, leg raises before bed. Sometimes I'd forget, but instead of scolding myself, I'd just whisper, "Tomorrow we try again." Even my body started to respond in quiet ways. My balance improved, my feet felt lighter, my steps more confident. And maybe it sounds strange, but my mood changed too. The days didn't feel so heavy, the mornings didn't feel so gray, and I started humming again while cooking, a habit I'd lost years ago. One afternoon, I ran into Claire outside. She looked surprised. "Margaret, you're walking?" I nodded. "A little, just to the mailbox and back." She smiled, that warm, knowing smile only old friends can share. "You look different," I laughed. "Don't jinx it. I've got a long way to go." But inside, I knew she was right. Something had changed. It wasn't just muscle, it was mindset. "Doctor," Lewis's words echoed in my mind. "It's simple, not easy." He was right. Every repetition took effort, but every effort gave something back, a tiny piece of myself. By the third week, I didn't need the chair to balance anymore. One morning, I stood in front of the mirror and lifted my leg, slow and steady, counting aloud. My voice didn't tremble this time. When I finished, I just stood there, smiling at my reflection. My legs still looked the same, soft, aged, imperfect. But I saw something else behind them now, resilience. And for the first time in years, I whispered to my reflection, "You're stronger than you look." It wasn't just a compliment. It was a truth finally remembered. It's strange how the smallest changes can feel like miracles when you've been stuck for so long. By the fourth week, I started noticing things I hadn't felt in years. A kind of lightness in my step, a quiet energy humming through my body like a song I'd forgotten the lyrics to. It began one morning when I dropped my spoon in the kitchen. A few months ago, that would have meant calling Emily or waiting for help. But that day, I bent down, carefully, slowly, and picked it up myself. I stood there for a second, spoon in hand, heart pounding with the kind of pride only someone who's been weak can understand. It wasn't about the spoon, it was about freedom. Each week, I added a little more. 2 extra chair stands, a few longer heel-to-toe walks, a gentle stretch before bed. I wrote them down in a little notebook. Day 18, felt steady. Day 21, less knee pain. Day 25, walked to the end of the street. It became my quiet ritual. Every check mark meant one more promise kept to myself. By the second month, my mornings looked different. I didn't stay in bed waiting for the stiffness to pass. I got up, rolled my shoulders, and began my 3 moves right there in the living room, sunlight spilling over the old rug. Sometimes I'd catch myself humming the same tune my husband used to whistle while fixing things around the house. Funny how healing brings back the music of old memories. One afternoon, I decided to walk to the park, the same one where I used to meet Claire. I hadn't been there in almost a year. The air smelled of pine and damp grass. The path was longer than I remembered, but my legs carried me anyway. Slow, steady, sure. Every step was a small rebellion against the voice that once said, "You're too old for this." Halfway down the trail, I saw Claire sitting on a bench. She turned, eyes wide. "Margaret?" I smiled, breathing hard. "Told you I'd catch up one day." She laughed, stood, and hugged me tight. "You did it." "Not yet," I said, smiling, "but I'm getting there." And that moment, that hug, that walk, it felt like coming home to myself. Back at home, I noticed how my habits were changing too. I started choosing better foods, oatmeal instead of toast, berries instead of cookies. Not because someone told me to, but because my body asked for it. I slept deeper, I smiled more, and sometimes in the quiet of the evening, I'd just stretch my legs and whisper, "Thank you." Because those same legs that once betrayed me were now carrying me forward again. A few weeks later, Emily stopped by with her 2 kids. "Grandma, race you to the backyard," shouted little Noah, already sprinting ahead. Emily panicked. "Mom, careful!" But I was already moving. Slower, yes, but with purpose. The grass was soft, the air was warm, and my laughter came out loud and free. I didn't win the race, of course, but I finished it. And when I looked down at Noah's smiling face, I realized what this whole journey had been about. Not youth, not vanity, but connection. I wanted to be present, not just alive, but engaged, involved, able. That night, as I sat on the porch watching the sunset, I thought about what Dr. Lewis had said weeks ago. The body remembers. He was right. But I'd add something to it now. The heart remembers too. Because once you start moving again, once you start believing that change is still possible, everything inside you begins to follow. Even hope learns to stretch its legs again. One morning, after finishing my exercises, I made a cup of green tea and sat by the window, my notebook open on my lap. As I flipped through my scribbled notes, day 42, less pain going upstairs, I realized I'd come a long way, but something inside me still wondered why it was working. Was it just luck? Or was there really something changing inside my body? So I did what any curious grandmother would do. I asked Google. I typed, "Why does exercise help after 60?" And what I found surprised me. The first thing that popped up was a study from Harvard Medical School. It said that even after the age of 60, your muscles can rebuild themselves. Apparently, our bodies don't forget how to get strong. They just need a reminder. It's called muscle plasticity, the ability of your muscles to repair and grow even as you age. I read that people in their 70s and 80s had shown real muscle regeneration after just a few weeks of simple strength exercises. Not marathons, not heavy weights, just movement. One article said, "When you activate the large and small stabilizing muscles of your legs, you reawaken dormant muscle fibers and improve balance, blood flow, and coordination." That sounded exactly like what Dr. Lewis had told me. Then I came across something else, a study from Stanford University about NAD+, a molecule that fuels energy inside our cells. The researchers said that staying active helps preserve those energy molecules, allowing muscles to remember how to function like they did years ago. I smiled. Muscle memory. The phrase suddenly made sense. My legs weren't weak because they were old. They were weak because they'd been asleep. And every day that I moved, I was gently waking them up. I found another article from the CDC that said 1 out of every 4 adults over 65 falls each year, and that most of those falls could be prevented with simple leg-strengthening exercises. That hit me hard, because I had almost fallen, and I realized, if I hadn't started when I did, maybe I would have been part of that statistic. But I wasn't. I'd changed my odds, one slow repetition at a time. I started sharing these little facts with Emily one night over dinner. "Did you know," I said between bites, "that your muscles can actually grow stronger at any age? Harvard proved it." She laughed. "Look at you, Mom, quoting Harvard now." I smiled. "Hey, I'm just keeping up with the science." Then I added softly, "It's nice to know it's not too late." Emily reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "It's never too late, Mom." And she was right. The next morning, I walked to the park again, my steps slow but steady. I watched other people, some my age, some older, sitting on benches, staring at the path like it was something they could never cross again. I wanted to tell them what I'd learned, that your legs aren't done just because you've got a few more candles on the cake, that the body wants to move, it just needs permission. I thought about how many people my age give up, thinking decline is inevitable, and how wrong that idea really is. We're not broken, we're dormant, and all it takes is motion to wake us up again. That night, I wrote a new note in my notebook. Science says it's never too late, but I say it's never too early to start again. I underlined it twice, because the truth wasn't just in the studies or the science, it was in my own legs. They'd carried the proof, step by step, every single day. And now, I could feel it, not just in my muscles, but in my heart. That quiet confidence of knowing, you can still come back from anything. It's been 6 months since that first morning, the day I almost fell. 6 months since I sat in that chair, trembling and unsure, wondering if my best years were behind me. Now, as I walk down the same hallway where I once clung to the walls, I feel something different beneath my feet. Stability, not perfect balance, not endless energy, just strength. Quiet, steady, earned strength. Every step I take feels like a whisper of gratitude. Last weekend, Emily and the kids came over again. The house filled with laughter, the smell of cinnamon rolls, and the kind of noise that makes a place feel alive. After breakfast, Noah tugged my hand. "Grandma, can we go to the park?" For a moment I hesitated, that old reflex still there, the whisper of fear. But then I caught myself. "Of course," I said. "Let's go." We walked the whole path this time. No cane, no chair breaks, just me, walking beside my grandson, listening to him tell stories about school. Halfway through, he ran ahead to the swings, and I stopped to catch my breath. The sunlight filtered through the trees, warm and golden, and I realized I wasn't tired. I was alive. I watched him laugh, legs kicking high into the sky, and tears welled in my eyes, not from sadness, but from pride. I had made it back, not to who I was before, but to someone new, someone stronger than I thought possible. That evening, after they left, I sat on the porch with a cup of tea and thought about the last few months. The fear, the pain, the first trembling steps, and then the moments of victory. The spoon, the stairs, the park, the laughter. It wasn't a miracle. It was work. Gentle, patient, stubborn work. But it gave me something far greater than physical strength. It gave me myself back. Later, as the sun dipped below the trees, I whispered the words I'd once said in despair, but this time with conviction. I'm still here. And I smiled, because now it felt true. My legs weren't perfect. My body wasn't young. But I had learned something no doctor, no statistic, no number could ever take away. Strength doesn't fade. It waits. It waits for you to move again, to believe again, to try again. And when you do, it comes back, quietly, faithfully, like an old friend. Now when I see someone my age struggling to stand, I wish I could take their hands and tell them what I've learned. You're not broken. You're not too old. You're just out of practice. Because that's all I was. Out of practice. And if I can come back from that, anyone can. So if you're listening to this, sitting in your chair, feeling that same heaviness in your legs, I want you to hear me clearly. Don't give up. Don't let fear convince you that this is the end. Start small. One chair stand, one walk to the mailbox, one deep breath that says, I'm still in this. Because you are. And who knows? Maybe, one day soon, you'll look down at your own legs, strong, steady, and alive, and whisper just like I did, I'm stronger than I thought. Do your legs feel weaker lately? Have you felt afraid to move, afraid to fall? Tell me in the comments, what's been holding you back? And if this story touched you, share it with someone who needs a reminder that it's never too late to start again. Because healing doesn't begin in the body. It begins the moment you believe you still can.